I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Ambassador Asim Iftikhar Ahmad, Permanent Representative of Pakistan to the United Nations, for his keynote remarks. Ambassador.
Thank you, Saima, Madam Moderator. Dear colleagues, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and our distinguished panelists. 80 years ago, in the shadow of unparalleled devastation, the international community made a deliberate and courageous choice to replace the law of force with the force of law, to elevate dialogue above domination, and to anchor international peace and security in justice, cooperation, and collective responsibility. That choice was enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, a solemn covenant that remains humanity's most enduring promise to prevent conflict and resolve disputes peacefully. And as we mark the 80th anniversary of the UN Charter, this moment demands more than commemoration. It calls for honest reflection and renewed resolve at a time when conflicts are multiplying and trust among nations is eroding and adherence to international law is increasingly selective. The central question before us is not whether the Charter remains relevant, but whether we are prepared to apply it with consistency, courage, and political will that it requires. So, colleagues, when we speak of reimagining conflict prevention and dispute resolution, we must be clear. This is not a call to rewrite the Charter or reinterpret its principles. The Charter does not need reinvention. Its wisdom has endured over the last 8 decades. What must be reimagined is how we apply it in practice and how we operationalize its tools early, impartially, and effectively in a complex and rapidly evolving world. Therefore, reimagining means restoring prevention to the heart of international peace and security, acting before disputes escalate into crises and humanitarian suffering, and privileging mediation over militarization, diplomacy over coercion, and international law over power politics. The Pact for the Future, adopted at the Summit of the Future in 2024, reinforced this approach by reaffirming conflict prevention, trust building, and inclusive dialogue as pillars, central pillars of multilateralism, aligned squarely with the Charter's original vision. This renewed commitment is most compellingly reflected in landmark Security Council Resolution 2788. It was adopted by consensus during Pakistan's presidency of the Security Council last July. It represents a conscious and collective decision to recalibrate the United Nations' approach to peace and security by restoring the peaceful settlement of disputes to its rightful place at the heart of the UN Charter. It reinforces the primacy of dialogue, negotiation, mediation, and other Chapter 6 mechanisms while underscoring the responsibility of the Security Council and its member states to utilize these tools at an early stage to prevent disputes from escalating into conflict. Importantly, Resolution 2788 strengthens the preventive dimension of Council's work by calling for enhanced use of good offices, mediation support, and confidence-building measures, and by encouraging closer cooperation between the Council, the Secretary General, the regional and sub-regional organizations. It recognizes that sustainable peace cannot be imposed through coercive means, but must be built through inclusive political processes that address the root causes of conflict. Above all, it delivers a timely and unambiguous message. Prevention is not optional, the dialogue is not a concession, and the peaceful settlement of disputes remains not only relevant but indispensable in navigating today's increasingly fragmented and volatile international landscape. Colleagues, the credibility of the UN Charter is ultimately tested in its application to long-standing disputes, particularly where political sensitivities are high, but legal and moral clarity is unmistakable. The situations of Palestine and Jammu and Kashmir are among the most stark examples. The Jammu and Kashmir dispute could have been a successful example of the application of Charter provisions for pacific settlement of disputes. The Security Council acted effectively in the late 40s and 1950s by providing the relevant framework for peacefully resolving this dispute, providing for self-determination, but it remained unimplemented to this day. And similarly, the situation in Palestine continues to underscore the grave consequences of selective application of international law. The prolonged denial of the inalienable rights of Palestinian people, including their right to self-determination, perpetuates injustice and fuels instability far beyond the region. In both cases, the failure to implement the relevant Security Council resolutions remains one of the most enduring challenges to maintenance of international peace and security. So, colleagues, as we commemorate 80 years of the UN Charter, let us reaffirm a simple but profound truth: peace cannot be selective, and justice cannot be deferred indefinitely. The authority of the Charter rests on its consistent and impartial application, especially in situations where principled multilateral action is most needed. So let us reimagine conflict prevention and resolution by applying the Charter as it was intended, faithfully, courageously, and without exception. I look forward to a rich and substantive discussion and to the insights of our distinguished panels and other worthy participants. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for this thoughtful framing and really setting the tone for today's discussion, reminding us that prevention is a charter obligation, dialogue is not a concession, and selective application of the international law weakens the entire multilateral system.